Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Market Wrap. So I am back in Philly. It was an awesome weekend. Hot, sunny, got to work on my tan, watched a little bit of basketball with my son Max, and then got to stay up all night watching the Hong Kong auctions. I love summertime. So we had three really awesome watches come in this week. And the first one we're going to talk about is a Rolex, and one you just don't see very often. It's one of the new OPs, the 41 millimeter, but it's the yellow dial. I think this might be the first one I've had in the collection. It is really great in person. It's a perfect size. It is an awesome summer watch, just a great yellow. Love having that piece in the collection. I know this one's not going to last long. Now the second one is a much more classic piece. It's a Lange. Everybody knows Lange is my favorite brand. It's a Saxonia annual calendar. So it's got an annual calendar, which is a great complication, the big date, it's in platinum. Just a classic Lange. I think it's an amazing value. Love that watch. And the last piece is a favorite of mine on the independent side, Gronefeld. This is the 1941 Principia. It's the beautiful pink dial. They also do the blue. I'm really attracted to that kind of salmony pink. Just a great watch, another one that's become super collectible over the last couple of years. So Saturday started really early. The Phillips auction in Hong Kong kicked off at 7 a.m. New York time. They had 52 lots in the session, which was their evening session. But there was some real interesting results. And the first one was, to me, a real head scratcher. It was an Alain Silberstein Tourbillon. Now, if anybody knows, back in the 80s and early 90s, Alain Silberstein did these really wild, funky hands, crazy watches. They were somewhat collectible, really fun, but a real modest price point. Now, this Tourbillon, his most complicated watch, had an estimate of $9,000 to $18,000, brought over $110,000. It's an amazing result. Obviously, two guys fighting over it, and one of them, somebody really likes fish to pay $110,000 for that watch. Now, my favorite watch of the session was, again, a Lange. Now, this was the 1815 Rolex Perpetual calendar, Handwerkkunst. So, very hard to say, very cool watch. These are very special hand-done Langes. They're all engraved. This particular one had a blue enamel. Just an absolutely gorgeous watch, but brought what to me was an astounding result of $600,000. Now, traditionally, Langes didn't really get into this kind of stratospheric price. This was probably a $200,000, $250,000 retail watch when it was launched. Very few made. So obviously a substantial increase, just a great result for Lange. Now the last piece of the session was an awesome Patek Philippe, a 3974 minute repeater perpetual. Just a classic, beautiful Patek, really what the brand always did best. It came out with a result of $1.2 million. Now this was a watch that was a $500,000-$600,000 watch a couple of years ago. So big results. Patek is definitely, throwing some weight around the auctions the last couple of results. I think this one will just keep that trend going. So we also had a Journe. We always pay close attention to the Journe market. This was a Vagabondage II. Platinum brought $235,000. Certainly the top result we've ever seen for this watch. We are seeing more and more Journes kind of test the top range of the markets. I think a lot of people thought last summer we saw the peak kind of come, but we are still testing new peaks, and it's still trading probably as strong as any brand out there globally. The other piece that I found quite interesting was a Bethune. Now, Bethune was a brand that 2 or 3 years ago most people hadn't even heard of. And the last two auctions have shown really strong results. This was a DB28 in titanium, brought $95,000. Certainly a huge result. I think more and more collectors out there are paying attention to these independent brands. Bethune is definitely a brand that's on the rise. Also, the last piece I'm going to talk about was the MB&F Legacy machine. Now, MB&F is famous for doing these crazy watches, the horological machines. I always appreciated, didn't always love. They were a little funky for me. But the Legacy machine to me is just one of the most perfect watches. It's gorgeous. It's got this balance you just can't help but stare at. And really going up in value. This one brought $105,000, a great result. So overall, it was a great auction, except for the fact that it went crazy long. We started the day session at midnight here in Philly time. We finished at 7:30 a.m. So minus a couple of quick naps in between, it was a long night. The market overall remains very strong. Pricing is holding almost across the board. We've seen a few sporadic areas testing new highs, rare Journe, Rolex vintage sport models, and even the Bethunes performed extremely well. I expect the market's going to remain stable as we head into this traditional summer slowdown. What we really think we're going to see is, I think the market's going to kind of stabilize for the next couple of months, and then come the fall, I think we might see another bump in values. So the last section we're going to talk about is what we're going to call Manjos value plays. So these are pieces that are overlooked, undervalued, haven't gotten really caught up in the hype of this market. So these are three of my favorites that I think represent an amazing value. Now, the first one is a Vacheron, a 49150, so it's a Gen 2. It's the chronograph, stainless steel with a black dial. This is a beautiful watch. It's got a big date. I think it's truly underappreciated. It's 42 millimeters, so it's a great size, especially for me. The caliber in 1137 is based on a Frederick Piquet movement, and which also powers the AP movement. So this is the same watch, same movement at least, based on that's in the 26300 ST, and basically trades at close to half the price of that AP. So in the low 20s, it's a definite sleeper. If you compare it to Patek chronographs, Audemars chronographs, it's a great buy. This is one I think we should buy, put away for a couple years. I think you'll be truly happy with it, and it's an amazing watch. Now, the second piece we're going to talk about is a Rolex. And it's hard to imagine that a Rolex has a sleeper in this market, but this particular one is a 18206. So it's a platinum day date, but it has a blue Stella dial. Now, traditionally, all the day dates come with glacier dials. Occasionally, you'll get a diamond dial. But to find one with a blue Stella dial from 2000 with the original box and the original papers, it's an extremely rare watch. I think this is something that if went into auction might go crazy. I think it's something we should definitely pay attention to. It's an awesome watch. So last but certainly not least is a Jaeger-LeCoultre stainless steel Master Perpetual. It is a gorgeous black dials. Now, Jaeger does all in-house movements. It's a historically Swiss firm. It's a beautiful perpetual. It's got a great looking dial. And for a watch that will sell at less than $13,000, seems like an amazing bargain to me. So that was this week's Market Wrap. See you next week.